Ariel Helwani, always appreciate when he comes on because I'm speaking to the person who covers MMA better than anybody else. We take the good and the bad with sometimes our guest. And let's go back to November 17th. Ariel Helwani, host of the MMA Hour, joined us. We talked about the possibility of Mayweather and Conor McGregor.
To be honest, I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I think it's a BS storyline perpetuated by these these morning debate shows because they know nothing about mixed martial arts, and this is the only thing that they can grab onto. To me, look, after the Cleveland Cavaliers won in June, were those same shows going on television saying, okay, that was great, they made history, but how would they do against the Denver Broncos? Because that's the same kind of discussion. It's ludicrous, it's embarrassing, and any journalist who actually seriously debated this on Monday, 2 days after Conor made history at MSG, should be ashamed of themselves.
Let's bring in Ariel Helwani, MMAfighting.com. He joins us now. Was this inevitable, Ariel?
I love that you guys played that clip. I was ready for it. I was wondering if you would play it, and I was ready for it. Can I just quote a line from the great Vincent Edward Scully?
Yes.
In a year that has seen the improbable, the impossible has happened, and that's really what happened here, because you have to go back to that day that we spoke and listen to what I said. I said, any journalist who was talking about this fight, which at the time was fictitious, 2 days after Conor McGregor and the UFC made history at MSG, becoming a two-division champion, breaking the gate record at MSG, not focusing on that and focusing on this pipe dream of a fight that Conor's people have admitted since was perpetuated by the talk shows. They sat around and said, look how many people are talking about this. Let's go after it. That's what I was talking about. So I've never gone on the record and said, like, this is never going to happen, but I do feel the same way today that I did back then. I wish people would have appreciated the moment more, but here we are. The impossible has happened. And you know why the impossible has happened, Dan? The impossible has happened because we could never have foreseen what happened after MSG. And think about a year ago today. A year ago today, the UFC is not sold yet for $4 billion. Conor doesn't fight Diaz for the second time. They don't go to MSG yet. Ronda doesn't lose in her comeback. So much has happened since then, and 2017 has been a really down year for the UFC. I believe if they're enjoying the kind of year that they were enjoying last year, the new ownership, they don't make this fight. But they need a big fight. Mm-hmm. It's just been very quiet for them, so they had to get it done.
Did the media make this fight happen?
I think in large part they did. And that's not a knock against the media per se. Again, going back to what I was saying in November, MMA is just a very young sport. So when you talk about the mainstream media, they didn't know what to make of Eddie Alvarez. They didn't know what to make of the UFC's long battle to get to MSG. They didn't know what to make of the first guy to ever be a champion in two divisions. So like they did with Ronda a couple of years ago, the first thing they grab onto is this crazy super fight, 0-0 boxer against, the greatest of all time, arguably. And, of course, the Ronda fight was even crazier because that was a female against a male, and that's just, that's really insane. But that's what they wanted to talk about because they didn't know what to make. They didn't know how to break it down in the morning meetings. And that's fine. Look, I'm excited. This is great. This is great for all of us. But it's still unfathomable. Here we have an 0-0 MMA fighter who's never boxed professionally or amateur, fighting a 49-0 boxer as a professional, let alone amateur, Olympics, all that stuff and more. I mean, we've never seen this before.
Well, I know that they talk about how they had to get this sanction, and Las Vegas somehow got this sanction. Yeah. I wish, since it's a spectacle, Ariel. I mean, it's not a boxing match or it's not UFC or MMA. If you did 5 rounds boxing and then you did 5 rounds MMA. Now, that, to me, is interesting. If we're going to make a complete spectacle out of this, then why not go all the way there to say, all right, Floyd, you got 5 rounds to knock him out. If not, then you're going to go to the mat here with Conor McGregor.
Trust me, I would love that. I agree with you. I think that would be even more interesting. But there's no way Floyd would do that at this juncture. I mean, he is a lot older. He's over 10 years older than him. There's really nothing for him to gain in doing that. And credit to Floyd because, I never really believed that he was going to call it quits on the cusp of making history. As you know, no boxer has ever gone 50-0. He's tied Rocky Marciano's record. So here he has found the biggest draw out there who just so happens to be the least experienced fighter out there, right, that he could fight. Even if he fought, some middle-tier 500 fighter, still more experienced than Conor as a boxer. I will say this, though. I see a lot of my colleagues saying Conor has no chance.
I know.
I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not, because I'm tired of not believing in what this man says. I truly believe.
But you're being smart, though, Ariel, because I said if you get in the ring, you have a chance. This isn't, where one knockout punch helps LeBron beat Golden State. You got to win 4 games. This is, if I get lucky, I can actually win this fight, and it'll probably take luck for him to win the fight.
I truly believe that he believes he has a chance to win. Like, he has a lot of self-belief. He has a lot of pride. We all do to a degree, but he is not going in there just for the paycheck. The paycheck is great. Make no mistake about it. This is a victory. Like, right now, the fact that it is a done deal, it's signed, is a victory for him. The rest is all, in many respects, gravy, because no one thought that he could convince the UFC. UFC could have stood in the way of this. They own his fighting rights.
Yeah.
No one thought that he could convince them to play ball with Mayweather Promotions and Showtime. They've never done this before. They've never co-promoted in the Zuffa era. But again, they need to do this because of the sale and the debt and the loan and all that stuff, and more power to them. They're not making 100% of the profit, but they're still making a nice chunk of change. But the fact that he got them to do it, that's a victory. I have no doubt in my mind that he believes that he's going to win, and I'm not going to be I can't believe when I hear people say there's absolutely no chance in hell. How do you know? He's done everything over the last 4 years. 4 years ago, Dan, this man was collecting unemployment checks. He was about to fight in his UFC debut on Facebook. It wasn't even on TV 4 years ago. That's insane. Look where he is now, about to make $100 million.
This is what I wondered about. Is this good for the sport if Conor McGregor makes this money and somehow doesn't stay longer in UFC? That I wondered about that. Once you get that money, is he going to want to continue to train and do this, or is he going to want to do something, be an action hero, or whatever his goal is in life?
Look, they are playing with fire to a certain degree. There's no doubt about that. What if he wins? And then they want to do the rematch, and, who knows what happens then. But I do believe for the UFC, again, it is a risk worth taking because, A, they need something big. I mean, they're going to make more money on August 26th than they've made in all their pay-per-views combined in 2017. So it's a risk worth taking in that regard. Also, this is a guy who's not even 30 yet. And he's not, this is not a guy who's going to sit on the beach going into his he wants to compete. He wants to make more money. He has been on the record saying he wants to be a multi-billionaire. So he can't just walk away from just making $100 million one night. So, yeah, there is a risk there, but I do know from talking to his team that they want him to fight at the end of the year. They want him to fight on that December 30th pay-per-view. And this is a massive coup for the UFC and Conor for 2 reasons. A, they beat Triple G Canelo by 3 weeks, so they beat them to the punch on the pay-per-view front. And the earlier this fight happens, the more likely Conor returns on December 30th. So this was good for the UFC. It was good for everyone involved because, they're standing to make more money, I think, by going before Triple G Canelo, and they're getting it done sooner rather than later.
Great stuff as always, Ariel. Appreciate you joining us. Love your honesty.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, Ariel Helwani, the MMA Hour, MMAfighting.com journalist.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.